You said one slightly off thing in a meeting 3 hours ago. The conversation moved on immediately. Nobody else has thought about it since. You are still thinking about it. You're replaying the exact phrasing, wondering if it came out wrong, wondering if the person across the table read it the way you meant it or the way you didn't. The meeting is over. The day has moved on. You haven't. And this isn't the first time. It's just the most recent. If you've spent your whole life monitoring yourself, replaying conversations, catching the small thing you said wrong, noticing the half-thought you almost expressed and quietly editing it before anyone heard, your psychology is doing something very particular. And it isn't what you've been told. The people described as too aware are not anxious, not self-obsessed, not in their head. They are running a level of internal monitoring almost nobody else around them is running, and almost everybody else is benefiting from. Here's the thing nobody talks about. Most people walk through their day without ever auditing their own behavior in real time. They say what they think. They react before they reflect. They don't replay the conversation they had at lunch. They don't notice the tone they took on the phone with their mum. They don't catch themselves being slightly rude to the cashier. These things happen to them, and then they're gone, and they don't think about them again. But some people don't have that off switch. From early in life, you developed an internal observer, a second track of attention running quietly behind the first one. The first track is the thing you're saying or doing. The second track is the one watching the first track, evaluating it, comparing it against how it might be landing for the other person, flagging anything that didn't come out quite right. Most people only have the first track. You have both. One process versus two. In the 1980s, psychologist Mark Snyder coined a term he called self-monitoring, the ongoing internal practice of tracking your own behavior and adjusting it to match the social moment. Snyder's research found that high self-monitors are more socially perceptive, more emotionally accurate, and significantly better at predicting how their behavior is going to land. Low self-monitors, by contrast, often don't notice they've made a social misstep until somebody points it out, and sometimes not even then. More recent neuroscience has connected this to the brain's default mode network, the system that runs when you're not focused on a specific external task. In most people, the default mode network goes relatively quiet during direct interaction. In people who are described as too aware, it stays partially active, running ongoing self-evaluation alongside the conversation itself. The brain isn't malfunctioning. It's just refusing to turn off a process that most other brains turn off without effort. Picture this. It's 11 p.m. You're in bed. You should be asleep. Instead, you're thinking about something you said at the work lunch 4 hours ago. A small comment, a slightly weird joke about a coworker that you're not sure landed. You're running the comment back through your head, frame by frame. Did the person you were talking to seem to react oddly? Did you misread their expression? Did the joke come across as critical when you meant it as light? Should you message them tomorrow and explain? Should you not mention it because mentioning it would make it weirder? Nobody else in that lunch is thinking about your comment right now. The person you said it to has eaten dinner, watched a show, and is asleep. You are lying awake editing a moment from your own life that nobody else even saved a copy of. This has been happening to you for as long as you can remember. But here's where it gets interesting. The constant self-monitoring is not vanity. The opposite, actually. Vain people don't audit themselves. They don't ask whether they came across well. They assume they did, and they move on. The people who lie awake at 11 p.m. replaying their own behavior are the people who care more about their impact than the average person does. That isn't a flaw. That's emotional accountability. Researchers studying long-term relationship health consistently find that the willingness to examine your own behavior, even when nobody's asking you to, is one of the strongest predictors of being a person other people can actually trust over time. But there's more going on than just accountability. You are also, almost certainly, a very fast learner about people. Because you replay your social experiences, you extract more information from them than the average person does. Most people have a conversation and move on. You replay the conversation, notice what worked, catalogue the other person's reactions, and quietly adjust how you'd handle a similar moment in the future. By the time you're 30, you have run thousands of these quiet postmortems. Your social intuition isn't a gift. It's the compounded result of a decade of self-audit nobody else was doing. And here's the kicker. The people who described you as too aware were almost always the people whose own lack of awareness you were quietly carrying. The friend who never wonders if they've offended someone is the friend you end up smoothing things over for. The family member who never apologizes is the one whose missteps you spend years explaining away. Hyper-awareness in one person is often the clean-up system for everybody else's hypo-awareness in the room. They get to be casual because you're being careful. They get to be light because you're holding the weight of the social atmosphere they don't notice they're affecting. And this shows up in ways you might not even notice. You apologize when you suspect you might have crossed a line, even when the other person hasn't said anything. You return to old conversations to check whether you handled them right. You think about whether your messages landed. You are, quietly, one of the few adults in most rooms doing the unrequested but essential work of staying responsible for your impact on other people. That work is invisible while it's happening, and unforgettable once it's gone. People who have spent time around you carry it with them, even if they couldn't name what they were carrying. Now let's be honest, there is a real cost. Hyper-awareness that doesn't get regulated can slide into rumination, into spending hours on a moment that doesn't deserve the airtime, into a kind of self-surveillance that exhausts you for very little return. The same trait that makes you accountable can, untrained, make you cruel to yourself. The work isn't to stop being aware. The work is to learn the difference between awareness that's serving you and awareness that's just spinning. But for the people who learn to carry this trait without letting it eat them, here's what you actually have. You have a level of social and emotional accountability that almost nobody around you is bringing into the room. You catch your own missteps before anyone else has to. You apologize before you're asked. You think about your impact in a way that quietly stabilizes every relationship and group you're part of. You are, in any room you walk into, one of the few people taking responsibility for the social atmosphere the rest are simply inhabiting. The work isn't to be less aware. The work is to trust that the awareness is a feature and to use it where it matters and rest it where it doesn't. The trait that has cost you sleep your whole life is also the trait that has made you the kind of person people quietly orient around, even when they couldn't explain why. There's something quietly remarkable about people who are described as too aware. They walk through ordinary days carrying a level of internal accountability the people around them have never bothered to develop. They do work nobody asked them to do. They hold space for nuances nobody else clocked. They lie awake at 11 p.m., revising moments the rest of the world has already deleted. If you've spent your life vaguely apologizing for being too in your head, vaguely wishing you could just let things go, vaguely wondering why the people who don't notice anything seem to sleep better, this might be the moment to consider that what you have is not too much. It's just a piece of social and emotional infrastructure most adults never built. You're not too in your head. You're not too sensitive. You're not too much. You're someone whose internal monitoring system is running on, and that system is one of the most underrated forms of decency a person can carry. This channel is called Silent Awareness because most of these things stay silent. Nobody talks about what it's like to lie awake at 11 p.m. editing your own behavior. Nobody names the people who quietly hold the social weather of every room they walk into. If you want to keep finding videos about the quietly different ways your mind works, subscribe. There's a lot more about you that nobody's named yet.